Hi, everyone. This is Mike Gormley. It's the Mike Gormley Show, and we're honored to have an author, kind of new to the author world, but it's a very interesting book. And Cary Baker is with us today. The book is called Down on the Corner: Adventures in Busking and Street Music. And I know you've always been a blues fan, and in Chicago you went to all the clubs and so on and so forth. I didn't know about busking too much, and I should explain to people that Carrie and I have known each other for decades, right? But
Absolutely right.
yeah, um, so how did you get into busking? It's in the book, but tell us about it.
Well, we need to go back to my teenage years in Chicago in the very early 70s. I grew up in the northern suburbs, very middle class suburbs of Chicago, lived a bit of a sheltered life, but on listening to early FM rock radio, I would hear the odd Muddy Waters track or the odd Howlin' Wolf track. And I started buying blues records, and I started to notice that some of them were made in Chicago. And I thought, wow, wouldn't that be cool to work for when I grow up, work for a label like Chess Records? So combine that with the fact that one day my father uh, told me that he'd like to take me to Maxwell Street, and I said, "Take me where?" And he said, "Maxwell Street." My father was a son of two Eastern European immigrants from Belarus, and they came to Chicago and they started shopping on Maxwell Street, which was a street that was also a flea market, kind of where the South Side meets the North meets where the South Side meets the West Side of Chicago, just adjacent to the Loop, and also adjacent to University of Illinois. And I thought, okay, whatever, my dad wants to take me there, cool. I had no idea that this was an outpost of live blues on the streets. So we parked our car in the University of Illinois, walked across Roosevelt Road down Halsted, and lo and behold, I hear slide guitar, and not just slide guitar, but obviously like steel slide guitar and blues singing. And I'm like, whoa, Dad, we got to stop and listen to this guy. So we did. And during a break in the action, and this guy played like one song for an hour, just kept on playing John Henry, the old blues work song. I introduced myself and I got his phone number, and he told me his name was Blind Arvella Gray. Actually, he told me his name was Arvella Gray, but he was known as Blind Arvella Gray. And he
Mhm.
lived on the south side of Chicago. His eyes had been shot out, and he was rendered blind in an argument over a woman down in Peoria, Illinois, where he lived in between his native Texas and Chicago. So he used to play Maxwell Street on Sundays. He would play the L station on 63rd Street on Fridays, I think, getting rush hour traffic, and he would play the Jazz Record Mart on Saturdays. So he had a whole career of this, and I hadn't seen a street singer before. And as we walked around Maxwell Street some more, um, we found other different street singers: Maxwell Street Jimmy Davis, Little Pat Rushing, Blind Jim Brewer, Big John Rencher. Not to mention a whole lot of 78s you could buy for a buck. I bought all these little Walter 78s that are worth like $1,000 if you can find them. Made in 1947 for a little label on Maxwell Street. So that was the beginning. I didn't know the word busking yet, but that was really the beginning for me. If I may, I was a journalism major at Northern Illinois University, and I came back and freelanced for many magazines. Mike, that's probably around the time that you and I met. And one day I got a call from Trouser Press, which was an influential, you could say, new wave magazine from New York in the late 70s, early 80s. And they asked me, Cary, is Milwaukee anywhere near Chicago? I said, yeah, why? Well, apparently there was a band they wanted a story about called the Violent Femmes. Violent Femmes were a folk punk group, punk but played on acoustic instruments from Milwaukee. And by the way, they're famous for playing on the streets. And I told them, sure, I'd love to do that story. I love street music. I really had I'd only been to Maxwell Street, and I'd been to New Orleans by then. So there were the Violent Femmes meeting me for an interview in the streets of downtown Milwaukee. We did the interview very authentically. And jump then about maybe 4 years. I was hired by I.R.S. Records to run their publicity department. That included new albums by R.E.M, the Go-Go's, etc. And so I moved in February of 1984. And being a single 20-something guy, I took my obligatory Saturday morning walk down Venice Boardwalk, and lo and behold, street music. Ted Hawkins, I would later find out his name was Ted Hawkins, an old black man with a white beard, singing like Otis Redding, and playing guitar. And I thought, wow, I've struck gold here. And then I look up, and there's a guy on roller skates dressed like a Sikh with a turban, playing electric guitar, like Eddie Van Halen style, design electric guitar. And I really kind of thought that kind of welcomed me to LA in a way. So I've been a Busking fan all those years, and with those milestones in particular.
Did we lose Mike? Looks like we
Hello.
lost Mike. Hold on one second. Let me stop the recording.